I always say I was raised in Texas, but I grew up in New York
Mm-hmm.
because I was there from right out of college and through adulthood, the early adulthood. So, I had my Sex in the City days.
Oh, whoa. Because you and I used to talk about doing a morning live stream.
Yeah.
And I still think if there's a producer out there who's watching, please, the two of us, because we don't have to censor ourselves. But your
No.
Sex in the City days, that could be a
I
whole
did.
episode.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. And I think that's why I like the show Emily in Paris. I binge on it because to me, it's like the best combo of The Devil Wears Prada meets Sex in the City.
Okay.
And it took
So-
it took me back. It took me back.
I don't
Anyway.
know, and I would be the prude most likely because I remember once as a morning anchor in Cleveland, Ohio, the geniuses in management decided that instead of starting the show at 5 a.m. in the morning, we would start at 4:55. I mean, ooh, because people wake up, what idiot. Anyway, on that very first broadcast, my co-anchor said, "Good morning, Cleveland, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "And I'm Adam Shapiro. And if you're about to do the walk of shame, better hurry up because the sun's coming up." And she said to me, "You can't say that." And I said, "Yeah, you can." So,
Yes, you can. I just did.
so let's get back that experience in Plano, Texas. Let me share with some people a little bit of your story. You talk about your parents, who are people who tried to get an apartment. Your father was in the service. Your mother, when she was 13, said, "I'm going to marry that guy." And when she was of age,
Yeah.
they did get married 7 years later.
Yeah,
And
no.
yeah.
They weren't in Arkansas. They were in New Jersey.
but
I'm just
but
kidding, Arkansas.
but people people would not rent an apartment to them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this is part of your, it's part of the DNA of who you are. Is this part of what led you to comedy? Because you talk about in the TEDx.
I think I got brought into the world of comedy. I always say it found me versus I found it. I mean, from the time I was a little kid, and my parents are funny and they have a great sense of humor. And I think that humor is such a powerful thing when you are dealing with the tragedies and triumphs of life, the stuff that sucks, the stuff that's unfair, the stuff that is all the isms that are attached to it. And yeah, my father was a captain in the Air Force. They just gotten married. He was stationed in Great Falls, Montana. There was no room on the base, so they had to search for a home off base, which they didn't think was going to be that hard. And they would call up these places and be told, "Yeah, sure, come on over." And when they showed up and the people saw that who they were didn't match who they thought they were talking to on the phone, suddenly there was no vacancies. There was no room at the inn. So, like baby Jesus, my mom had to go back to Camden instead of Nazareth, instead of the stall. And their first year of marriage, they actually lived apart from each other, which I didn't even realize until talking to them later in my adulthood.
Now I'm older than you, but this is a history that I think a lot of people don't appreciate. And as a white guy, look, there's a lot that, and we talked about this in the days at Fox during what we had the uncomfortable conversations. But the reason I think you and I have hit it off is my mom, before I was born, became friends with a woman she met at the Panel of American Women, Diane Smith. My mom, white Jewish from Portland, Maine. Diane Smith, black Catholic from New Orleans. They would, as their work with the Panel of American Women, my mother would call up apartments and say, "Hi, Brenda Bernstein here," her maiden name, "and we want to come take a look at the apartment." And Lena would say, "Great." And then Diane Smith would go look at the apartment and say, "I'm Brenda Bernstein." They say, "Oh, it's been rented." So a lot of people don't know that this is a history
Yeah.
that many Americans had to face within our lifetime.
That happens now. Adam, I would have friends doing stand up who would have to have the comedy club manager go out and hail a cab for them if they were a black man to be able to get to their next gig around town. Like this still happens in its own way today.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask.
So
Well, let me ask you this, because we go through these phases in the country with race, and again, Inversity Solutions, your business. I mean, you speak nationwide about these kinds of issues, but you do it from a different perspective. I said jokingly with friends before the show started, I said, "We're going to have a great show because guaranteed we're going to say something that's going to piss off people on the left, and guaranteed we're going to say something that pisses off people on the right." And what is so unique about what you do is diversity without division. And these things still happen, but it seems as if, are people open to understand this is still reality for our country people?
I think think people are, but it's how you broach the topic, right? I think everybody knows this, and certainly anybody who's married knows it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And the same goes for conversations that can be uncomfortable, conversations that are around taboo subjects and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those, they're not just taboo for being taboo, it's because it's so personal, right? Because it's about you, who you are, how you show up, what you look like, what your abilities are, what your sexuality is. And so, everything is kind of up for scrutiny and judgment. And I think that the way that a lot of DEI has been done by very well meaning and well intentioned people has gone off the rails. And that's why we've had this incredible backlash that we've seen, because it really should be a conversation of how do we bridge the divide? How do we shift the focus from what separates and divides us, which is always going to be, to what it is we have in common, which we do have more in common than we don't. How can we be truly inclusive of one another? But most importantly, and as I say powerfully, how can we be introspective, understand your value and worth so you can see it in someone else? And I think where things kind of went sideways was so much of the focus was on the external, right? Well, you need to use these words for these people, and you need to have this attitude about this group. And no, you need to look at yourself and follow the golden rule. Treat others as you would like to be treated, and the platinum rule, treat others as they would like to be treated. And it really isn't that hard. It's kind of common sense, but it requires conscious empathy.
But how, I can understand how you got led to comedy. One, because I know you, and two, because I've watched your TED Talk and some of your comedy routines on YouTube. But in your book, and I want to pull up the first quote, your book, You Can Be Perfect or You Can Be Happy. You talk about different concepts here. There's one quote where you talk about the grass. People always say the grass is always greener. You say, I prefer to say the grass is always greener when you water your own lawn. I think you've just hit upon that, but tell me more. What are you trying to say to people in the book with that?
Well, I think we are always looking for external validation, right? I also believe the greatest lie that we, meaning all of us, humankind, humanity, has been told is that we're not enough. And so we look for these external things, external people, tangible objects, material things, and certainly other people's approval to feel like we're worthy. And when you're worried about what other people are thinking, you're not pouring into yourself, not in the right way. You may look the look and walk the walk a little bit, but is that really how you are feeling? Is that your authentic you?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're taking care of yourself, really pouring into yourself, that's when you're watering your own lawn.
Did you come about that over a period of time? Because I played the clip. You
No,
talked
I
about.
was born this way. I was born enlightened.
Yeah, but well, you talk about being, the all-white cast of Raisin in a Sun. You were the raisin, but you also talk about in your TED Talk things that white people would be uncomfortable saying. You use the term black scent. And I know if I were to say that term on the street, I'd get slapped. I'd be, oh my God, I'd be canceled on X. But you talk about this, and this is the authentic who you are.
Well, I think it depends on your audience, right? It's always, who are you speaking to? Because if you'd said that to me, I know what you meant, and we're boys like that, right? Like,
Right.
I like, so again, it depends on who you're speaking to, and there are some people who are always looking to be offended. It does not matter what you say, what time of day you say it. If there is something that can make them a victim, if there is something that they can pick at because you affected their sensibilities, they will do that, right? And there's a hint of narcissism to that, which I think is very rampant in this country right now. And that's not a political thing because it's on the left and it's on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, when we are discussing how to engage with other people, it's one of the top rules in comedy. I mean, the first rule is be funny, right? And rule 1.5 is know your audience.
I would not be good in comedy. I mean, I have not shared this story because
I disagree.
Well, thank you, but I got accused of this phrase always whacks me up. A cultural appropriation. As a Jew, I want the bagel back. When they put blueberries in bagels, whoever put Sarah Lee should be shot. But look, I got accused of cultural appropriation when I was at Yahoo Finance because God forbid I held up my favorite book. I read it when I was 19. My favorite book is The Color Purple. I think Alice
Okay.
Walker created a great work of art. I have a hard copy, a first edition of it. And I held it up during a discussion we were having about something. And a member of the Yahoo Finance team, who's no longer employed there,
Uh-huh.
accused me of cultural appropriation. And I remember thinking to me, what crazy planet am I on?
Wait, I have to ask, did you imitate Oprah Winfrey's voice?
No, no, I did
Dan
not.
Glover? Like, what did you do? Like, and that's absolute insanity.
Of course.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
People are so worried about virtue signaling, right? Look at what a good person I am because I was upset by this. Sometimes they aren't even the person of the ethnicity that is being talked about. That's
Mhm.
what blows my mind.